So a lot of people used to talk about K power for life. K power for life. Well, it's best friends for life now because of this new suspension, which we're going to talk about today. I just want to do a quick live stream. I have a much more detailed video coming up pretty soon. I'm going to talk about the suspension and how it works, the technical nerdy details, but this is just kind of a brief commentary on that to go with my series on the ZX10R. Follow me on Instagram at Carlisle's Picks, and also like the Your Fast Life Facebook page as well. So the new 2016 Kawasaki Ninja ZX10R has this new fancy pants suspension. Let's take a look at it. Here's a close-up shot of it. And so first of all, what exactly is a BFF? And again, I'm going to go over this in more detail in a future video. This video, I wanted to more focus on my comments on whether I think it's really worth it or not. Again, a little bit more photos than I wanted to show. Whether it's worth it or not, whether it's just kind of a marketing gimmick or what the deal is. I mean, in the future, I want to also dive into things like cost. I mean, if you're adding this much more advanced suspension onto a bike that was already pretty awesome, you know, and we got to look at the cost of the old bike versus the cost of this bike. I mean, you know, when you're paying for this bike, part of that money is going towards all the components, which includes the suspension. If the suspension is better, to me, that's a potential increase in cost on a motorcycle, unless they potentially play some games as far as, you know, let's save costs somewhere else. So, and there's different ways you can do that, but let's cut costs somewhere else and then apply those savings towards the suspension. So the suspension, let's say the suspension costs $500 more than a previous suspension, then they're going to have to reduce the cost of manufacturing of this motorcycle by $500. And of course, this all is dependent on what their profit goals are in terms of how much money they want to make per bike. You know, so a lot of stuff to consider, but is the suspension really worth it, or is it just really hype? Well, I'm on the fence. I think, you know, obviously I've got to ride the motorcycle to really see, you know, how it is and to really give you some real feedback on it. But just based on the technical details, just based on my understanding of how this thing is supposed to work, and the core idea, the core principle is this: when I talk about balancing a typical suspension or a standard suspension system, you're going to have potential imbalances between the forks, but how much that affects your performance, your riding performance, your suspension performance, you know, that remains to be seen. So potentially this system is improving that, but what those improvements actually going to mean in terms of riding experience, that remains to be seen. But that's the core idea of it. It's a balanced approach between the forks, and also it's supposed to give you, in general, improved suspension, as well as it's supposed to be more comfortable at low speeds, and there's supposed to be advantages as far as braking as well. Now, the short of it is, I think that a lot of the potential improvements of the suspension are going to be for lap times. I think this is going to be for track day guys. This is going to be for Kawasaki, as far as, you know, getting those lap times and being able to brag and say, you know, our bike is faster than the BMW S1000RR. Oh yeah. So, you know, getting a professional rider to beat a BMW on a new 2016 ZX10R, I think this suspension is potentially the tool for that job. And again, track day guys. But as far as street guys, I don't think it's going to be all that relevant. The main thing that I would see that would be relevant would be the low speed comfort. It's supposed to be more comfortable at lower speeds. That is something that could potentially be relevant. Well, it would be, if it depends on how much more comfort, but that could be definitely relevant to street riders. But all the rest of the stuff, I don't see being relevant, except in terms of I shouldn't say not being relevant, significantly relevant, except for braking. Braking is definitely something that I could see a realized improvement on the street. But everything else, I think, is really track focused. I mean, it is a track bike. This is a race bike. I mean, that's what the ZX10R is. I mean, essentially, it's a race bike, right? And so therefore this suspension is kind of going with the spirit of what the ZX10R is supposed to be. However, I'm dealing with the reality of things, and the reality of things is the majority of people buying a ZX10R are not taking it to the track. They're riding on the street. So those riders want to find out from me and from other sources, how much this is going to affect their riding experience on the street. And my instincts tell me, for the most part, not much. But don't quote me on that. I mean, I have not tried the suspension out yet. I have to really, really get on one of these bikes and try it out to let you guys know how it is. But again, I think it's really, really all about the track, because not only you have this balancing, superior balancing mechanism, you also have a lot more adjustability of the suspension, the front and rear. Front and rear, where you have a lot more settings you can adjust. Again, you're fine tuning. You can't fine tune for the street. The street is not a fine tuned environment. So, how are you going to be using this precision equipment in such a rough environment? I mean, it's kind of like you're using a I don't know. I can't think of an example right now, but you're using something that is high precision to do something that is very raw and rough and imprecise. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I'm thinking like a scalpel, using a scalpel to cut rocks or something. And the rocks just aren't compatible. I mean, you're chipping away these big chunks because you can't really do a precision cut on rocks like that, because it just crumbles. It doesn't make any sense. So the streets are those rocks, and the suspension potentially is a scalpel. Now, if you get off the street and get onto a track, now you're talking about something where that's for lack of a better example, that's skin. So now you have a scalpel and skin. So now you can make precision cuts with this new suspension and take advantage of how sharp it is and how precise it is. But outside of that environment, it's kind of potentially overkill, other than, again, the low speed comfort. So that's my general instincts on the suspension. Again, the most important thing is I would have to actually ride the bike and test out the suspension to see how it is. But initially, I don't see this being a big deal for the street riders. So stay tuned on Your Fast Life, my main channel, and on this channel as well. I'll try to do a lot of my live streams on Your Fast Life too, and keep this channel as active as possible. And Your Fast Life, my main channel, I want to have that be more for, like, for example, the ZX10 series, where I went into detail talking about that bike. But the extra content, the extra information, and the extra commentary, I think is mainly going to be on Your Fast Life 2, which is the channel you're watching right now. This is Carlisle. You're watching Your Fast Life 2, and that is my comments on this new fancy pants suspension, which looks great, but I'm not too optimistic about how it's going to affect street riders. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you might want to wait until my video, which might be released tomorrow, going into technical details about the BFF suspension. I'm also going to give the guys that I'm going to be talking to Showa as well, to get some feedback from them as well. So you definitely want to stay tuned for that. That's going to mainly be, again, on my main channel, Your Fast Life. Thanks for watching, guys. Ride safe, shiny side up, and have a great week.